Please. Okay, now we're ready.
Okay, let's call to order the Hood River White Cement Bridge Authority meeting of today, which is November the 27th. Doing a quick roll call. Marla is here. Doug is remote. Arthur Babbitts is here. Grant Paulson is here. I am here. Catherine Thomas is here. Is there any other alternate did Seth call in?
Yeah, he just did.
Okay, Seth is here as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am. Hello.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Is there any modifications, additions to the agenda that anybody would like to make?
We did pass out, we got some legal response back on the RFP procurement, so we did pass that out to everybody.
Okay.
And then we will discuss a couple other items that we got legal review back on when we get the action items, but no new action items.
Okay, with those modifications, any other adjustments anyone would like to make? If not, could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Okay, we've got it. Thank you.
And then Jake Edwards just joined also.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jake. Public comment. Do we have any public comment this time around? 3 minutes each. We see no one in the room here. Is anybody on the line that would like to talk a bit? If so, raise electronically your hand.
There's someone.
It's right.
Nope.
It's just,
We'll get our ready.
it's just the point.
Oh, it's okay.
Really excited about.
Okay, executive reports. The co-chair's report. Since Jake is not here, I'll give a quick update. Coming out of last week's board meeting, we did take a vote and we are reducing the weight limit on the bridge because of the amount of welding that has to be done. It's extensive. We're talking thousands of welds. And we're pretty sure it was caused by when we raised the weight limit back up about a year ago. We got the damage on the bridge again. So
Was that something that the engineers at that time said was a possibility?
they did, but they couldn't tell us how bad it was going to be. So there was a vote taken and the court decided to go ahead and raise the limit back up. But we're seeing an extensive amount of damage. So
Saw the pictures.
yeah. So the next step on that is that there's meetings being set up with our heavy haul customers to meet with them one-on-one, and there's about 5 groups. And we'll explain why we're having to do this. Signs are being made up. The software is getting adjusted. Doug, you and I had a discussion. I did bring forward an option of perhaps reducing the cost of the heavy load going across at the reduced rate to try and somewhat offset. Yeah. It hasn't been agreed to, but I can tell you a strong consideration is being given. I think it's going to pass.
Thank you.
And we'll do that at the next meeting.
What is the weight limit being set to?
I believe it's going to 60,000.
What was it?
80. And of course, the new bridge will be 100,000.
I thought 80 was the
And the new bridge.
105, the new bridge.
105 is the standard.
So basically, if you can drive it on 84, you should be. able to take it
That's the
off.
max permitted, that's the max permitted amount.
105.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, next item, project director's report, Mike.
Yep, just a few things. We do have the, I'll call them tentative GR sessions for Oregon and Washington in the paperwork. So the session for Oregon looks to be February 5th through March 10th. The Washington session right now is January 8th through March 7th. So Washington will start in just slightly before the Oregon session. That's the dates as of right now. And that was confirmed with the lobbyist. We were able to come to an agreement with the labor unions on an MOU. So that moved forward. And they have now supplied us with letters of support for the BIP as well as the MPDG grant. So we are including those and we'll be sending those on. The BIP application, the submittal date has been revised. It is now December the 4th. Everything is in except the Excel file template that the FHWA supplied, and there's an issue with uploading it. So they are trying to figure out how to fix that uploading issue. It's something to do with the format of the Excel versus XLS versus M versus B or something. And so they're trying to figure that out. So our group is waiting right now to see if they can get that fixed. If they do not change anything, then we will upload our application on Friday, this Friday, and we will email them the Excel file as we have it. If they make a clarification this week that says, hey, hold on, we're still trying to fix this, wait till whatever date, then we'll do that. As long as that's okay with the board, unless you want us to just submit this Friday no matter what, and then provide an update at some point in the future. It's on their side. They have been in their Q&A, letting everybody know that they're working on this. So I don't think there's any issues with us waiting. But we also have everything ready. It's uploaded. It's ready to submit. We're just waiting to make sure, would like to do it all at once. The only reason in doing it all at once that would help is that there's no clarification or misunderstanding of information being all in one spot. But if there's any concerns about that, we can have that discussion. We can keep you updated as to how that's going, but that's the general where we're at right now. Is we'll submit this Friday unless something changes between now and Friday, and we'll let you know.
So the Excel file will be some kind of a PDF of it that you're going to send in.
We're not really, yeah, well, we will know. We
Friday.
will email them the Excel file that we're currently using
Okay.
in the format that they have given us. And then
just
we will
thinking-
update it later. if we
I'm just
need to.
thinking also include it as a PDF, so there's
We can
no
do that, yeah.
excuse that our submittal was not complete.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge to do that as a PDF because that file is pretty massive and it's not really conducive for making it into a PDF. Wouldn't capture everything we put in there. So
Yeah.
we'd have to figure out
Probably
some
why
way
they're
to
having
get it
problems.
to them.
I understand it's just kind of a CYA that we in
Yes.
fact did it. We in fact gave you a submittal. And
It
we
sounds like
pointed
they
you,
realize they have an issue.
they do, and they've had it on their open Q&A session. So, they're trying to fix it.
It's on their website noted pretty prominently as well. And it's part of the reason they extended the deadline and they're still working on fixing that issue. So
Boy, probably not a fun weekend for some of their staff.
I am sure it was not.
For those of you who are technical people, this is Kerry. It's an issue between the XLS format and the XLM format, and they provided us the spreadsheet template in one of those formats, and they want it submitted in another one. And we can do that conversion. We can submit it in either format, and right now their system is rejecting both as invalid file formats. So what we thought we might do is send them one of each. Say,
Yeah.
here they are, and we know they work. You guys decide, but we want to make sure we're on record as having submitted it by the deadline. So
that's my point too, Carrie.
You just add a read receipt.
That's what, if we
And-
submit on Friday, what we'll do is submit what we can through the site, and then we will email them with some kind of record that here's the two formats and we submitted these as well. And that way everything is in before the deadline
Oh,
on,
yeah, I'm just saying, if you have a read receipt, there's literally
at least you can say it was sent, what was sent, so.
that you read it.
So the other two things, we have been just funding updates for you. We are still working with Southwest Region WashDOT on their funding agreement. We emailed with them last week. They should be getting that to us anytime now. That will give us access to their state funding. We also have a meeting with them set up to get the date. I think it's the 7th of December. To meet with their headquarters and regional staff on how they're progressing with the federal piece of their funding. And what that's going to look like and how and when we can get access to the full 15 million. We're continuing to work that. And then Oregon, there's a couple things going on. We're working on a change of recipient for the 20 million lottery funds to change it from the port to the bridge authority. That seems like it's, in talking with our lobbyists, that seems like a pretty easy change. They've ran that through the folks in Oregon and feel like that'll be a pretty simple change to do. Depending on the timing, the $5 million loan, the infrastructure bank loan, couple things we found out with that. If we can get the name change done, then we will just do that in order to have the bridge authority's name on the loan. If that's going to take too long for timing wise, then we will need some kind of an agreement with the port that it be in the port's name, but the port is going to give that money to the bridge authority. That may end up needing to be a part of the governmental agreement that you're working on. We'll know that more in January, so maybe just an amendment. We need to do the agreement if it's done before then. So that's the two pieces to the grant agreements with Oregon.
How about a status on the open items?
Status on the open items, the main action item we're tracking is the EIS and the biological opinion. Got an email last week from Cindy Callahan, who is FHWA, who's been working directly with NIMS. She had another conversation with NIMS. We clarified some questions and some backup that she needed to be able to respond to them. But then she also said that NIMS has told her that they do not think that their legal team will get through their review by the end of the year.
What?
So it may be moving into January before we get final sign off from their legal advisors on the biological opinion. So I told her I would let you know, told her you'd be disappointed. But that's where the last comment was, is that they're moving through it, but they have brought in 3 additional people, which is good and bad, because you get 3 additional people, you get 3 additional comments or 3 additional people looking at it and different opinions. But that's where they are. So they've brought people in to help, but whether that's good or bad, we'll see.
So once that legal sign off happens, what's the next step?
That's the last thing we need for the biological.
We
should get the signature piece then to be able to do the.
And can hang it on a wall.
And we can frame it and put it up on the wall.
Refrigerator.
Yeah.
The EIS, which is another piece of it, we were able to talk to the Yakima Nation last week and this week. They are going to, their lawyer said they being the Yakima Nation is going to move the 106 independently and try to get that through their system. He was hoping to get that in front of their committee this week in order to get what FHWA needs to then finalize that process. There will be an asterisk to that that says the fishing treaty MOAs have to be done before they will completely sign off on the ROD. But at least they will sign off on the 106 and we can get that step all the way up to, the final signature piece with just the treaty MOAs. So hopefully that'll move that at least one step further. And then we can get those 2 pieces signed, checked off, and then we're just waiting on the treaty MOAs to be done. So, and I'll give you an update on those.
So how much additional cost have we undertaken in this process? Is it continuing? Now you mentioned they're bringing on staff.
We don't pay anything on the NIMS side. It's only ODOT that we reimburse. So, we're reimbursing ODOT's time for any questions that NIMS may have. So yes, that piece we're getting some additional costs, but I would have to go back and look at what their last invoice was.
Yeah, but it shows again the frustration of something that should be pretty easy and taken forever to get done.
Well, and I guess it's also just that larger cliff of this EIS has been years underway. And are we at risk of catching ourselves in our own expiration date and having to go back to pay for more work because of these breakdowns of efficiently moving our application forward?
So we're already there. We've already, I think the 22nd or 23rd of November, we passed the expiration date. What that means is a revised letter, for us to do. Hate to even tell you guys what they've said, because I know you don't trust anything that comes out of their mouth, but they said it should be simple because we're at the 95% line, and all they're doing is saying it's done on something that was 95% done anyway.
Hey.
So the FHWA
FHWA.
and ODOT folks, yeah. So it shouldn't be difficult, but they said there's no reason to go ahead and do that until we get the biological opinion and the FEIS done. So as part of finalizing the FEIS, once we get the Yakima piece cleared, is we will have to do an email that just says nothing has changed, and then they can go ahead with the signatures. They said that should be a simple process.
I would suggest that we have another set of eyes look at that, because that just doesn't feel right to me. I think we need to put them on notice that we do recognize we're past the date. We want to start the extension effort and not wait until whenever the BO gets done. Because they could come right back and say, well, it's been too long, got to start over again.
Yeah.
Not that I don't trust them, but I don't trust them.
Isn't it, so who is the consultant doing, like, tracking the EIS?
WSP right now.
Okay, and they're waiting for, I'm just repeating back what I'm hearing,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of acronyms that went out, a lot of theys and thems and thises. So right now we're waiting for NIMS, correct?
On the biological opinion.
Which is needed for us to get a rod.
It's one piece of the rod, yeah.
Right, but that is also contingent on the MOUs with the nations, correct?
Correct.
Right, so
106.
Let me say that a little
Well,
different.
the
The biological opinion is not dependent on the treaty MOU.
Right.
The biological opinion can be finalized and signed independent of the treaty fishing MOA. Same thing with the section 106. That can be finalized and signed without independent. The rod and finalizing the whole thing and getting the record of decision cannot be completely signed off without the treaty MOA. So there's three pieces, but they can all be done independently. But all of
Yes,
Let's clarify that just a little bit. The local rules are the MOA has to be signed. Legally, nationally,
Right.
it doesn't,
right.
but there's an agreement locally to do that.
that's correct.
Okay, because I was just not that I was going to challenge you on that, but so that's because I do know the NEPA. That's what I do. So I actually understand, which is why I'm like 5 years is
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So what's your take?
offline.
Crazy.
Well, I would say that this is insane. That this
Yeah.
that the people, this is not a priority for them, because
Yeah.
5 years is not. We would never. That's
100% has not been a priority for them. I mean, they, until I would say recently, they have not put a lot of attention on this.
because the
For
issue is
whatever
that
reason. I mean, there may be a lot of reasons why they did not, but it was not a priority
I
project.
just think it's a liability overall for the readiness.
Absolutely.
RFP. Like, I don't know if you.
There we go.
Yes, because how do you hold someone to the? Yes, I just think I would just like to raise concern that, thank you for asking a deadline date, because I didn't even think to.
What we've done in the past is that a couple of us raised heck and went to our state representatives and federal representatives, and they made a couple phone calls, and Mike got a phone call, says, please tell your commissioners to hold it up, stop. We'll take care of it.
Well, they're
We
not.
did. Well, we did, and we saw a little bit of action for a while, but now we're seeing it slide back. So I think it's very close to the time where we got to start making some phone calls again. I was hoping we would have heard about the big funding,
Yeah.
and especially if we get that 200 million or something close to it, then all the phones start ringing.
Well, NIMS is.
What's up?
I don't think we're gonna get it.
So
And with
The
this,
NIMS is,
you know?
I mean, everybody's waiting though on NIMS. Like, that's not just an us project. Like, a lot of people are having their permits. So that is not, them getting more people is great, but there's probably 150 people ahead of us in line, like, honestly. So I'm just saying, that's great, but is there a way to get the other two done? Because then you can say, hey, we're really much closer.
the biological opinion is the closest one to being done.
Okay,
The EIS needs Yakima Nation to sign off before it can go forward. That is the next step that has to be done.
All right.
They have said that they are going to do that this week. They had been silent on us for months. Yakima had. They just called last week and then called again this morning and have said that they're going to hopefully get to that this week.
Remember,
No
we had a
guarantees of that, but
we had a good meeting with them out
Yeah.
here at the
Yeah.
port, and we pleaded with them to separate it, and they agreed to it.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the feds have sent them a letter giving them, in writing already, a commitment that they would not sign off on the rod until the treaty MOA was done so that they could move forward with the 106, which they were very happy about. Nobody completely understands why they went silent for 3 months, but they did. And now they're back to talking to us and have said they were working on it and they're at the point where they think they can get something back quicker.
So then the final piece to this is the MOA with the 4 treaty tribes. I personally think we're fairly close on one of them, which is Umatilla. And I think internally, what we're trying to do is use that as the pattern to go after the other 3.
Yep.
And we've asked Umatilla to take the lead to go talk to their brothers and sisters in the other tribes. That doesn't appear to be happening. So I've suggested to Mike that he just go ahead and send it to the other treaty tribes, just a copy of it, and let's go.
Yeah.
That's how we got this whole thing started, by kind of ignoring and just playing dumb and going and doing it, and it actually worked. So let's try it again.
So we're revising the Umatilla MOA to be specific, the new one to be specific to the other 3 tribes, and we'll get those out. And we have a meeting on the 17th of January with Yakima Nation with an opportunity maybe to do that a little earlier pending their schedules. Nez Perce, our legal has been in contact with their legal.
great.
They're waiting on their legal to confirm a conflict letter that we needed to send. As soon as they do that, then the legal can get back to the conversations of moving the MOA forward. So we will send this new MOA. My concern with sending the new one is how they're going to react to a revised version before we've had a conversation about their comments on the previous version. So hopefully that won't cause any confusion, but they need to get this new version anyway. So we'll see how that goes. Umatilla, we've got a meeting with them on the 5th. So we're going to push them to see if we can get something resolved with them. We've got a couple of things that we're going to present to them to maybe help move that forward. We're trying to negotiate it for the process and not so much the exact number, and let the number be calculated more on a year basis when we see what happens on a yearly basis, which will hopefully let them move forward with an MOA without having to get every number and worry about, their compensation for the next 6 years. They can worry about it on kind of a yearly basis, a little more than a 6-year basis. And then Warm Springs, we've got a kind of trying to do everything they can to get them to come back to the table to talk to us again, and we'll send them the new version. So that's where we are with the treaty MOAs. One other update is the geotechnical. We did provide that information. I think we had a conversation a few meetings back about a scour analysis that had been done on the existing bridge that had identified that the bridge was sitting on bedrock. We have some additional information now that says it's not, based on the borings that we did. So we provided the firm that had done the scour analysis with our updated information. We still owe them one memo, which we should have this week. But we'll see. It's up to them to take the new information into account and see how they may revise their scour analysis. It may not have a big deal, other than it just documents the concerns of the bridge a little better and a little more accurately. Wasn't anything anybody did wrong. They just made some assumptions because they didn't have data. Now they have data, so they can modify their assumptions. So we'll see how that gets modified and if it does make any differences in our ratings of our bridge, as far as, how they score the substructure and superstructure numbers. So,
And to clarify, piles not being on bedrock, that's true on the Oregon side from the lip span to Oregon. It's not true on the Washington side, correct, of the lift span.
Yeah, the Washington side is all sitting, from best they can tell, sitting on bedrock. The Oregon side is, and it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It just made them more susceptible to earthquake than what we previously had thought.
No, when we're getting a formal report.
We have the formal geotech report. Yes, so
Was that announced last meeting?
it was last meeting or the meeting before, so I can get you I'll have to, it's it's like 180 pages, so I'll need to get you a Dropbox. So I'll get you a Dropbox and get that to you.
Okay.
And the profile that they did too. So. So that was all I had for
Okay,
my report.
You know, though, that when they built the bridge, they thought it was on bedrock.
We believe they did.
Well, we
Yeah.
have evidence, and we have I passed along to you that article from 1925 saying that.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
President said that.
at that time, the way they determined it was,
I'm not sure that they were not
Yeah.
correct. But that's more disturbing because it's not like the design was such that it didn't matter. Their design had the intent and the understanding that it was on bedrock. And as you recall, also that same document said that it was designed for a 40,000-pound load.
So, yeah. I mean, it's been there 100 years, so luckily there's
Years.
factors of safety, but yeah, it's just a little more concerning when it.
okay, and the last two items, which is legal report and the lobbyist report, that's on the first meeting of the month. So we're not
So we'll
doing
do that in
today.
December.
I did forget, is there any modifications or corrections to the minutes, meeting minutes of 11/13/23? Does anybody have any adjustments that they feel they need? If not, could I have a motion to accept as is?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. It's passed. Thank you. Okay, consent agenda, adopt Columbia Gorge News as the newspaper of record. That's pending a legal review.
Yeah, so we have that drafted. The reason we didn't include it is we need the reference to the statute. So legal, as soon as we get that, then we'll bring that back on December 11th. But I think everybody was in agreement that Columbia River Gorge was the one we'll use. But we need the references in the motion. So
We
once,
need a statute that requires us to have a newspaper record.
so once we have that,
Yeah.
So there's no, just ask to save some time later. Does anybody have a problem of doing this?
It's basically the only option.
Yeah. Okay,
I guess the only thing, I know, but it kills us sometimes just on Washington state requirements. I don't know if Oregon's the same, but because it's only a weekly paper published in print on Wednesdays, then the print deadline has been historically on that Friday prior. And so sometimes you find yourself in like a 21-day lead necessary to meet as minimal as like a 10-day noticing requirement just to catch all the business days. So sometimes that can be difficult. And if we're going into a phase on like contract word side where there's multiple things that need to get posted with noticing, there could be a benefit to having another newspaper that's like Portland or Vancouver based that's on a more regular cycle. But that could just be a
I do have one concern with this particular paper, depending on who's covering it. Covering an article, there's one.
all this is about posting your public hearings. This is about the newspaper of record where we will always, as I understand it,
information.
notice any, in the very back of the classifieds where they'll list public hearings.
Okay.
Requests for
That's
proposals.
fine.
It doesn't mean you can't also post it in publications where people are probably more likely that are gonna bid on something to find it. You have to have something where the public can access it. So it doesn't interplay at all with how this local newspaper will continue to cover our project.
Protocols or anything.
Yeah, I think as we get more in tune with that and we show more activities, I would certainly encourage, your group to really watch the articles, especially from one individual. We got in the paper, the port got in the paper this last time, and it's chock full of errors. So,
It's a small town newspaper. That's not a surprise. The fact is, choosing this newspaper record just means we've met the legal requirement and we've done the community a benefit by helping to keep them afloat.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, committee reports, funding and finance, grant.
So that's only on the second meeting.
That's this one.
Isn't today's?
That's just, you're right.
It is this one.
Mhm.
I mean, we got together and talked a lot about the infrastructure bank that Oregon is setting together and getting the application together for that. Yeah. I have baby brain right now, so I can't put all my thoughts together.
Totally get it.
So if Michael, you can help me out with some of this stuff. Yeah, we talked about the TIFIA letter and getting that part done. We talked about the infrastructure bank, and we talked about any other possibilities regarding funding or finance. What we talked about was the state infrastructure bank generally would be the least costly source in generality to go. If we get private financing, it's going to cost more. If the board chooses, we can get direction on getting other private bids in case of emergency break glass sort of situations. Generally be more costly, but we should be applying or receive enough funding if we're successful from the infrastructure bank to cover the bridge that we had talked about in terms of gap financing.
So yeah, Debbie's had a couple local banks approach her now that they know we have the 20 million from Oregon, that would be collateral for them to do some type of private loan. She has not, right? She hasn't done much with that, but if the board wants her to get a little more detail, just we know what the interest rates would be and the terms would be, we could do that. If you feel like that's something we should get at least the information for.
As a plan B, a more costly option, but just in case we needed more choices.
My gut feel, and just my opinion, if we get the $200 million grant or something close to it, then I think we should go look at options for backup. If we don't get the $200 million grant, then I think we need to be very careful where we're spending our money, and especially longer term money, until we can figure out a plan to recover.
Yeah, and I guess I would follow that with if we think the latest these would come out, or once they come out, I think the first meeting after the awards have been announced, we need, depending on the results, we need to have a meeting about the schedule and budget of the project as a whole. Because I think not getting anything this cycle will impact our schedule and will impact our dates. And we will need to have a conversation about how quickly we move forward and how we want to adjust things pending another grant cycle. So, but that's probably a February, March conversation. Like I said, we've got enough to move the design forward, without a doubt. It would be what we do and the speed that we do that at would probably need to be adjusted. So.
Yeah, and we don't have any additional information about the bridge infrastructure bank because we'd have to go through the application process in order to determine loan term or interest rate or anything that related. So can't tell you how expensive it would be.
Yeah, we did get one clarification, and this actually just came last week. We might not even today. The lady that runs that, we asked her about whether or not we would have to pay the full 1% if we did not take any of the loan, and her response was that we would only have to pay whatever their direct cost had been to that point. So if we, they had only done developing the application and things like that, there would just be reimbursement for that. It wouldn't be the full 1% until we took the loan out. So yeah, we've reimbursed some, but it wouldn't be the full 1%.
Yeah, and on that fund, there's a 1% flat fee upon, was it the authorized amount? Yeah, the authorized amount. So if we did 10 million, it'd be 100,000, for example.
Anything else?
We also reviewed in between our meeting and today we went through and reviewed the BIP application and offered a bunch of feedback on prior to submitting it. So we went through that with a bit of a fine-tooth comb.
Okay. Engineering construction.
We met, and in our hour, we discussed the RFP. We have staff making us some copies just so that we can ensure we're all going through it ourselves and really understanding that. For running the review. We also discussed the cone of silence and making sure that we're all on the same page about that, which we are, which is great. We discussed having our role really be only an advisory to Mike, and having that really clear dialogue between Mike and us, and then any sort of disagreement or not, that we're both, all of our, committee and also Mike are not in line, then we would come here immediately to the authority. And have a really open and clear dialogue. And that would be about time, treasure, talent. So if the project was not going to be done on time, we would make sure that we all had the clear understanding as to what we thought Mike should advise the construction team to do. If it was going to cost too much, or if there was some sort of talent deficit as well. I think that's something we really talk about, the people that are going to be working on this project, and to ensure that how can we as a committee benefit and sort of set up a long-term workforce if we can, and how can we sort of work together with Mike about that. So that's what we focused on. To be honest, when I was asked to get this report, I said, I don't think I attended the last meeting because it felt like it was so long. So did I forget anything, Mike? Am I good?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
So one add-on though onto the workforce housing. Little side note, we had a discussion with the board on that. And I made the pitch to go take a look at the Odell piece of property. We set up a meeting with the planning commission of the county.
Planning director, yep.
Yeah. And we had a really good Zoom call on it. And it went from, frankly, no, I don't think so too. Yeah, maybe. So the planning director sent a follow-up email describing what he thought would have to be done. There was no real killer bees in that list that we saw. So
You have that list?
I don't have it with me, but I can send it to you.
Forward to me. Yep.
So I think the next action is we want to get in front of the county, or the county come to us and make sure that this list is right. And maybe the port then will go ahead and spend a little money with an architect to kind of rough out what that property would look like and how you would put in the infrastructure. The agreement would have to be that once the work is done, the RV park goes away. So,
sorry, go ahead.
and again, this is not for the entire workforce. Maximum would be 40 to 60 spots. And I'm pretty sure we're going to need somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to 200. So this doesn't preclude anybody else doing anything else. It's just maybe a catalyst to start.
I think the Port of Hood River needs to come present to the authority the same way we're asking all the other entities.
Mhm.
But otherwise, already then there is a perception that there is a special advantage or favorable direction being given to a different entity who has someone sitting at this same body. So in fairness to the rest of us that wear different hats, I think I think they should get scheduled and that maybe they're ready, the port, to come in January. But I don't think that I think that's the first step.
Well, I'll bring that back to them, and I don't think that's a problem at all. You should be aware that this is totally at the risk of the port. Totally at the risk of the port. The port's not asking for any money from the bridge. So all of the risk is theirs. Likewise with other people in the community. And again,
Yeah, I mean, at the port, but that's the port then making their own decision of straying outside of what their definition is for economic development, or determining that an RV park is economic development they want to pursue, and they're developing that regardless of a bridge project or not. If they're identifying it only because of the conversations that have been spurred about a possible opportunity to benefit by the construction of this project, then the way that we have been moving in that conversation as the authority overseeing it is outreach to all the entities who similarly could be coming to make a case for why they might have a project that could see long-term benefits. And then I think that's where the port should come and engage us.
Okay, and I don't disagree, and I think the port will be happy to come do that. I think the port is finding that this may be an opportunity to help the local community as well. So
Good.
they're not going to make a ton of money off of it. But the way I've been talking to people is that if we don't do something like this, we're going to be in direct competition for hotel rooms and hotels of the bridge workers versus tourists. And the bridge workers will win.
Is that a problem? So
And also rental homes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
yeah, in terms of, so you said that you have a memo from Eric Walker describing the steps that he thinks would have to be taken. You're going to share that with me. And then you said something about trying to get before the county on this.
No, I wanted,
Is this an?
I'm
appropriate
suggesting-
conversation Considering it's, I'm sorry to interrupt, actually, I'm not. I'm
No,
just
go ahead.
interrupt- But you're talking about the port and are you talking in your seat as the bridge, a bridge
I'm talking Bridget
commissioner?
area now, yeah.
Okay, not the county.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're clear.
This is what I'm
because-
trying to understand. It's
Right, I'm just like, as we are sitting in a bridge authority meeting and I hear, and I understand, Mike, that you've
Yep.
done so much work and I'm not discounting anything that you're, so please don't misunderstand
Okay.
this. But I just want to make sure that we are not straying so far that we're having conversations that are not necessarily about the engineering construction. And what I was thinking about us, we're talking about people coming in and we do talk about all the areas, not just the port in these meetings. And I want to be really clear. I mean, we have a really good, clear discussion about what are the opportunities in different counties. And so coming back to this conversation, why I interrupted was,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that you're not speaking as a county commissioner to a port commissioner, send me the email, can you forward me the email? Because that, for me, is making me confused in my own seat.
The reason why I'm asking specifically is that the Bridge Authority needs to understand that there are certain actions that they may be requesting the county to take, which are quasi judicial, and therefore they shouldn't be going any further. They shouldn't be talking to
Yes.
anybody
Thank
but
you.
the staff member they're talking to.
That's why I was trying to clarify what we were doing is that I believe, and again, we're stretching it a little bit. Before the port, I believe, would go spend money on an architect, they want to have a reasonable chance that if we go through this, it'll get permitted.
Got it.
And if it's not, then let's not waste any money on it.
So with a quick look at the memo that Eric wrote, I can advise on whether that's an issue or not. But I'd like to bring up another possibility, which, I spoke with someone who's very knowledgeable, but I'm not going to say who I spoke with, who said that we should ask ODOT to give up their quarry in Mosier to be converted for this purpose, and then to be turned over to the city of Mosier after it's been used. So
So we should bring that county and city.
so I don't,
Wasco County.
Yeah.
it's Wasco County, yeah. Again, your point about not giving any preference, I don't know how serious this person was. It's a very noisy place, but it's someone who knows a lot about this sort of thing. So I take it seriously. It's worth a question, and we can figure out if it goes beyond that.
Yeah.
And you know,
Last closing shot here is that one area is not going to solve the problem.
Right.
Right. Which is why I like, we can get 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I think it's just more to Catherine's point, and especially as we've been trying to come to all of this from the ground up of a mindset of squeakiest clean, or however you've said it before. Some of us wear multiple hats. This project affects the whole community. If the direction that we as authority members have taken is to ask staff to schedule all entities regionally who might have opportunities to partner or create a catalyst project for the bridge project, we should not have those conversations until those entities have come in with their representatives to talk to us as the full commission. That's all.
What I'm saying here is this is a situation where I'm saying this idea was raised. The parties involved have no idea that this was raised. Therefore, staff would have to inquire with them to get someone on the Wasco County side or Moser City side and someone on the
Totally.
ODOT side to talk, because none of them know this is.
Yeah, I think like the thing I'm hearing is we've missed some people from our list. Port of Hood River should be on there, Wasco, Moser, like, but then it's
right.
Can't wait to hear more from them.
Right.
Kind of a thing.
And I sure wouldn't be wanting to tell the city of Moser or the county of Wasco.
Personally, I don't think it's a problem saying that, hey, we get indication that there's one interested. Fine. Maybe that'll help spur 3 or 4 or 5 more. Cool. I don't think we should kind of keep it secret if there's 1 or 2 looking like they may possibly be interested.
So
get it out on the table.
I have a different concern. Today, it's the responsibility of the contractor to figure out how to house staff, and they're going to build that into the price of their bid. So it's to our benefit to create some possibilities, because that may result in us getting cheaper bids. At the same time, I don't want it to become our responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's the approach we discussed.
Great. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't here last meeting.
Yeah, was that we will create the opportunity for the contractor to go out and discuss it with these entities.
Great. Okay.
We're just trying to get the ideas that we can share them with the contractor and say, hey, here's some great ideas, because we're just lump sum paying them and they're going to spend it somewhere.
And even better is if we can do it earlier so that it's cheaper.
Yeah, so they can make their decisions early and figure out what they are up front, because you only got a certain amount of time to get that stuff ready.
Yep.
And I think as well, if we do it earlier, hi, this is Seth online, there's the opportunity to provide more benefit for the community surrounding the area, rather than, something that's in and then out when the construction is done. There's the problem. If communities want to make an investment as well, then they might get some long lasting benefit. So I definitely think it's worthwhile putting together a proposal of some sort, or putting together, this is what we need. And then we can at least point the city of Moser to something. Say, hey, we've put this out. Here it is. We heard that you might be interested, or we might have a way forward with this. So here's the opportunity that others are seeing the exact same thing as you are.
Right. Jake Edwards has a hand up.
Yeah, it just seems like this topic might be a great opportunity for some communications. Putting together a count, regional wide communications to the newspaper or whatever, saying this is a topic that we want to engage the community with, and then so we can get more formal communications would be great.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's that work from the last meeting about putting together kind of what's this envelope, like what do we see as the baseline starting point for these different organizations to wrap their head around what the need will be.
And the timing,
Yeah.
To me, we've got 2 years before we really need this in place.
We don't know what form of construction we're doing yet, so we don't know exactly.
No, we don't know if it's 150 or 200, but we know it's not going to be 10.
But it's more than 50.
Okay. Governance is not this time. Communications, government relations.
If I could just jump in, since my name is there at least. Did someone report on my discussion with Oregon Transportation Commission, OTC? Last me, okay, because I passed down to Jake, but I wasn't sure if he was going to remember to mention that. So just before the last meeting, I was invited to speak in front of the Oregon Transportation Commission, nominally on the Columbia River Highway project, which I am part of. But in the introduction to the discussion, some discussion of the bridge happened. So in my time, I took advantage of the issue that come up was the fact that ODOT staff is acting in a consulting capacity and assisting in assistance to our bridge authority, even though it's not a project of theirs. So having their board in front of us seemed like a good opportunity for me to say that we appreciate that and basically just thank them for support that we've gotten before. And I basically said that the advice and counsel of ODOT on this project is very much appreciated, and thanks board for letting them do that. So not a lot of content there, just want you guys to know that the communication did happen in front of the board, the ODOT's board.
Good.
They all smiled and nodded their heads.
Just on that topic to bring it up, and this is kind of an informational item. I don't know if we've got it on here. Recent conversations with ODOT and FHWA, we are developing a charter agreement with ODOT and FHWA of what the decision-making will be for the authority and their representatives on the project, because we are a local project, but we're a non-certified local agency.
Right.
So on Burnside and on Sellwood, they did a similar thing, and ODOT actually brought this up of developing a charter that basically makes us kind of a pseudo certified agency for this project. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're developing that charter. We can bring that back to the board for review, or we can take it to one of the committees if you want us to do that instead. But we were going to develop this charter with FHWA and ODOT to define our abilities to make decisions and document that with FHWA and ODOT so they're familiar. It'll basically look very similar to what they did on Burnside and Sellwood, because that's what they've done. So
If it were to go to a committee, it would probably go to the governance committee, but I don't think, it doesn't sound to me like it. It sounds like you're simply asking for them to share with us what they've done so far. And
yep, we're going to take that basically and draft a third version of their previous two versions.
Yeah.
Says almost the same thing,
it
and
says Bridge, Riverway.
it says Bridge Authority on it. And
Yeah.
yep. So just so you're aware that we're going to
I
do.
think it's still worthwhile bringing the final product.
Yeah, we can do that.
Because it is a commitment on our part to. how we're gonna work
Absolutely.
with it.
No, I'd like to see it,
Yeah.
but I would start, I wouldn't wait for governance to say, please ask them for this.
Yeah, and we've got copies. We've started the draft. We were going to get that. We'll get it to a fairly final state and then we'll share it.
Great.
Anything else?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, communications, government relations.
I'll give a couple updates, and then you probably saw in the packet if you reviewed it. Anna's here in person, but also went into a little bit more detail, just general work that's ongoing from the communication side. But things we've worked on this past stretch, refining the vision, mission, and principles, which I think we're going to be talking about a little bit later in action items. I gave a presentation to the RTC, I guess 2 weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving. That's the regional, they're working on the regional transportation plan for Southwest Washington. And so we were asked to highlight the bridge project. And we spent that time they just wanted 5 minutes from a lot of projects. So we really tried to focus in on the authority and our role and how we're governing and overseeing the project. We also spent a lot of time evaluating kind of visually how we present the funding chart. And the different ways that it's used based on the audience, whether it's more about communicating the need of what we still have to receive versus what we've already have or how we've built that up. And so that refinement is ongoing, but a new version of it was in the newsletter that just went out to those that have subscribed. So I think we landed in a good place in terms of being able to balance everyone's desires about how that's communicated. Looking ahead, obviously with the legislative sessions on the horizon at the state level, we'll be working with the staff and team to understand what we need to be producing and what messages we really want to be reinforcing, especially in Washington, Oregon. And then I guess just a reminder, I don't think the BIP application went through communications, but the hope going forward is that all of the grant applications make their way to communications, because we would really be looking at it from that storyline mindset, which I think on the heels of our DC trip was kind of the resounding theme from every sit-down meeting. As we know, we have a strong project, but it's really about connecting the story to those people making the decisions of the human impacts of this bridge project. And Story Gorge, they're obviously, well, not obviously, maybe some of you don't know, but they are who JLA has brought on board. They're a local video production company. They've produced the videos to this point. They're working on the next video. they've done some outreach. We had a survey, and just from the outreach of sharing that survey through city channels, we got about 120 or so hits, and there's about 12 people they're following up on. But what we're really trying to look for is make sure that we're telling the story that hasn't been told yet, which is very much more the everyday user, someone who's commuting because of a job requirement or childcare or a medical condition that requires them to seek pretty regularly services on the other side. Our stories to this point have really focused more from the government side of raising the bridge toll and why that was needed, or business owners, or kind of mid-level professionals or higher, and how the bridge affects them. But we're really trying to make sure that this next video captures some stories and faces that we haven't seen yet. So if you know of anyone in your own social circles that you think would be a good fit, please, you can just send that email on, because we're hoping to get that next video. And
Well, you know, Doug and the weight restriction will be a big.
Absolutely. But I think what we really need are stories of the everyday person who has a boss or is working for someone or is carrying two jobs or feeling those tolls. We've definitely, and we will absolutely tell that story too, but we've featured some of our business owners in some of our main industries. And I think that what's evident is that our videos are great, but they're a little lopsided, and we want to try to even those out in the next stories that we focus on.
And you should be clear that that bringing up Doug with respect to the weight restriction is because of his company and the heavy loads that they bring across, not because it's Doug himself, right?
Correct. More or less.
Or the community of growers, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. But I would say to that point, Doug, like if there's people on your team that you know are living, you know, on the Oregon side and are always commuting over into Washington. So, you know, if you feel like there's people on your team that would be comfortable sitting in front of a camera and speaking to their life with the bridge, I think those are definitely some of the stories we're looking for.
Yeah. I can also get you growers if you want.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Anna, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I was just, as soon as I heard the weight restriction news, that's where my head went. So I think that'll be a good storytelling opportunity.
Marla, quick question. Did you say feel free to forward on that email? Is there an email that we should have received, or was that, did I mishear?
Feel free to email me or forward along those leads, like the names or people background on like, hey, you should really reach out to this person. That would be helpful. So no, there was not an email that went out to all of you guys about looking for stories or subjects.
There is a form that they can share though.
Yeah, we do have the survey. I can send that too if you want to pass that along to people.
Yeah, I had some thoughts of folks that might be interested.
Cool.
I'm not sure if this kind of fits in communications, but I did see an email from Catherine saying that they're planning their centennial stuff and wanting our feedback or us pass along any possibilities. So you might communicate that through the bridge channels since we share an anniversary.
Yeah, I did not see something from Catherine.
No. Okay, I'll forward it to them if I can. Awesome. It was like a week ago. And did I send you all the information on the history of the ferry that predated the bridge?
Yes, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that is true. Or we're out in front by a year of the 100th anniversary of the bridge and crossing. And so definitely, I think this time next year, hopefully we have a lot of good news to share on where we are with the project. But there's been talk locally of trying to recreate an image from that day and just recognize it and how we're going to recognize it.
But it also brings them
just a word of caution. I know the port is planning on doing a big brouhaha on it. So we need to make sure everybody's talking to each other.
Yeah, that'll be a port led. The port owns the bridge, so 100th, but obviously we are interested.
I'm talking about from a messaging point of view, though. Yeah. This is an opportunity to remind people of how old the bridge is, remind them of the time in which it was built and what it was designed for, which is all to our benefit in trying to tell the story of why this bridge needs to be replaced. Because there are still people out there saying, "Oh, I like this bridge. It's cute. It's quaint. I don't have to drive it. I just like looking at it." So, you know, there's still a fair amount of that out there.
Yeah.
This is a way to motivate that story.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So I do have one thing for communications, and it's on here under the upcoming presentations. So I sit in on it with One Gorge now on their kind of leadership group, just to keep in touch with what they're doing. they would like to come in to do a presentation to the Bridge Authority just because you all are new and they have a lot of things that they do in helping us get letters of support. But they also do a lot of legislative activities. They were looking at creating a presentation, and I told them that it might be good if we combined efforts because they were looking at including, basically their legislative presentation was primarily going to be about the bridge. So I said it'd probably be good for them to come in and just tell you all about what they do if people aren't familiar with them and how they function and operate, and let you all talk about the videos that we're doing and how maybe we can share information or work together with them on a video that they share, but also something that supports what we're doing. So they'll be in December to start that conversation, and then we can see how we can maybe partner with them. Now, the other request, and I don't know how we do this because we don't have funding, might be that we somehow support them because they do get a lot of their funding from local groups. I know the port in the past, don't know if they will continue to do this, but the port in the past has helped to sponsor them as well as other groups in the area. So they may bring that up and have that conversation with you. I don't know. Just be thinking about that. I don't know how that works.
That's an early conversation. I think
So,
we need to
but
be
yeah,
funded.
it's coming.
Viable project.
It, the question might come up and the discussion might come up in December. So just wanted to make sure you guys are at least aware that they are funded by local businesses and local entities. So, they just make you aware of that. So.
Okay, so let's move on. Unfinished business 8, there was nothing there. Correct, Mike? Okay, moving to 9, new business.
Okay, so unfinished business, I just have I did a quick check on newspaper record. So it's ORS 193, newspaper record is required to be in the county if there is one. So there is only one newspaper in our county, so in the county of operation.
But is it really? I thought, didn't they move their office to the Dalles?
Well, it's basically the only paper we've got.
Yeah.
Originally.
And I don't in or near.
Yeah.
If one is not in the county, it's required to be near. In other words, a normal person trying to find out about something would say, gee, what's the nearest newspaper? And they would choose this newspaper. So that's kind of the paper record should be. And by the way, there's some specific provision that you can also, instead of a newspaper record, you can send the information by telegraph. I swear.
Do you have one?
It specifically says it comes by telegraph, and that counts as
dot dash dot 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 dash.
Get a big telegraph key and put it in this room.
Okay. Okay, Mike, let's move into new business. You want to touch ratify and allow RFP procurement rules?
Yep, so I handed out a paper today. We got legal comments on this. This basically is kind of a retroactive thing of just having you all ratify that the RFP procurement is specific to the RFP and acknowledging that we're going to follow those procurement processes. Only because right now we're governed by Hood River. This just kind of acknowledges that the RFP has some additional things on top of the Hood River County. We just need to make sure we got that in the record that there was no issues or concerns and that you all were okay with ratifying it.
So I'm just confused about what the motion is. So you're asking us.
That's right.
Yeah, can you explain in English what the?
Basically just acknowledging the release of the RFP and following the procurement process as defined in the RFP for this project. Yes.
Any further
There is
discussion on
any
this?
inconsistencies with Hood River County, the RFP rules in that process.
Basically, our RFP incorporates Hood River, but more.
Yeah.
And you would expect it because it's a big procurement. It's a big contract. So with that, is there any further discussion that you'd like to have on this?
And legal's on if you have any questions for legal. You need to.
No, it makes sense that the wording of the motion is a difficult motion to read, but I understand the concept.
If you want to better language.
I'm nervous because seems very specific.
I think it's just saying that there are rules that were laid out for the request for proposals, but our progressive design build is different. And if there's a gap between the rules, which are the ones from the Hood River County Contracting and Procurement, if there's something that isn't covered in those rules, then what we've laid out in the RFP will govern. So it's just covering that
was a
gap
wonderful
between
motion.
the
I second
rules.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll put a motion forward to accept the action as written.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. It's, we've adopted.
You know who the fastest reader in the room is?
How about agency roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, so the next one is a motion in the RFP, and I included in the packet section 4.8 and section 11. Section 4.8 basically outlined some governing rules for the project director in relationship to delivering basically the RFP contract. These rules are very consistent with the rules that were in the Washington RFP and how Washington DOT runs their projects, and that they allow their project engineer, which we call project director, to manage their projects. We also then, what you have to look at on it is those decisions are project level decisions, but there is a dispute resolution process where the contractor, if he disagrees with the project level decision, can escalate that up to the engineering committee, which then if he disagrees with their ruling, can bring it back to the board. So ultimately the board ends up with final decision on any elements that are in conflict. It also identifies areas where, again, the project director can make decisions with some caveats to when things have to be brought back to the board, and those can be modified however you might like. There was just some suggested terms put in there. And then the other was that the director will work with the committees, which we've said, but just kind of puts it into a motion that the director understands that they'll work with the committees as advisory committees to making decisions or working through any contract decisions. And it also notes that he can only work within the rules of the contract. Any modifications to that contract have to come back to the board. They can't make sole decisions on contract changes. And then limits on budget and time impacts that they would have to bring back to the board as well. So just kind of opening this up for discussion. And
yeah, I think we need to spend just a minute or two on the bottom of page 28, if you pull that up. This gives Mike 4 or 5 bullets of topics that puts a limit on what he can do and what he can't do. And I think it behooves all of us to understand that. And if any of us have a concern about that, now's the time to bring it up. So the first bullet, change impacts any agreement, contract in place with the authority. Example, EIS, any of the MOUs or MOAs, that has to come back to this group. And I think that's appropriate.
Yep.
Because it's impacting an agreement we've made with an external source. Change is anticipated to have a negative impact on the established baseline total project cost of more than $250,000. That sounds like a lot of money, but when you're talking $520 million, that's 0.04%. Now, the only concern that I would have here is that that's on a single change. It's not going to take us long that we're going to have a lot of changes to this project before it's done. So maybe we need to consider something like the $250,000 on an individual change or an aggregate change up to $10 million.
Over what period?
I'm sorry?
Over the entire contract?
Yeah. So once an aggregate hits 10, it has to come back here and we reset it.
I mean, do we need that? The first bullet says a change impacts any agreement or contract. If there was a change in the cost, it's going to affect the contract. So aren't we already saying it needs to be coming back to, he's got to go to a
No, the first
committee?
one doesn't say anything about changing to the contract. It changed to external agreement.
Or contract?
The way it's worded is contract.
Oh, contract in place.
That would include the PDV
So
contract.
let me ask you, Mike, if it said 10 million, by the time you've reached this 10 million through little chunks of, you've gone through 40 chunks at that point. You can't undo them.
Quick math.
If you want to, that's why I threw 10 million out knowing you'd go for 5.
No, my point is I don't see what the benefit of it is because that's after the fact thing.
So the issue, I think, is you want to watch the trend line. And you want to set a marker early enough that you still have a chance to draw the project down in cost.
But did these come from, where did these come from? These 5 criteria?
They're basically what was in the engineering committee. They're modified just slightly, but they were similar to what was in the engineering committees.
So they're not a copy from a WashDOT or?
No,
They are not. These are specific to the project.
Okay.
Yeah, and what it does is just tries to allow some project level flexibility to whatever you're comfortable with that being.
In my mind, you got to give Mike some leeway to manage this thing.
Right.
Now we're talking about, okay, how much leeway do you want to give him?
So I think there's a difference between having the authority to make a decision and keeping the commission informed. So I would expect that any negative impact we would be informed of, and so we should be tracking it ourselves and knowing that these things are kind of building up and getting out of control.
Yeah, like wouldn't something that's a change of that level, wouldn't that trigger a change order that would need the sign off of the governing body?
Well, if that's depending on what we agree to here, there's certain changes he could sign off on.
Now,
If we're authorizing this, we're saying you can go ahead and just do
Right,
it.
we're saying.
right, the other thing is every meeting, so twice a month, you will get a report on what's going on, which will have any approved change orders or mod. So if there's something that you see that I approved and you're like, wait a minute, what was that? Even if it was under this every 2.
I think that's where I'm hesitant about a larger cap, because that scenario that Arthur outlined is very realistic. And back to being the oversight of public funds, there can be a very slow trickle over a year of 10 or 20 of these things at 250,000 or, whatever. And next thing you know, we're at 11 million or
That's why
past it. And when you see them singularly as one-offs across meetings stretched over a year, the bigger picture is missed.
That's why I added the second piece to it.
hard cap.
Which again, let me try it again. So we give him authorization up to $250,000 on a single change. Now, when the aggregate of all of the approved changes that he has made hits a number, from that point forward, everything comes to us unless we reset the mark.
So I would suggest a different version. So I understand what you're saying. I think I'd be more comfortable simply saying that there's a $250,000 number and that any negative impact changes will be reported at the nearest meeting. So I'd add that to that and then put the responsibility on us to be tracking it, and we can take action if we see that this has been happening. You don't have to do the math for us to keep track of the fact that
I get
I
that.
reached 5 million or 10 million.
Don't you want to give him some authority, though, to go ahead and authorize the change and get the change moving?
That's what it says here.
Yeah, and I just think like,
Authorize it, absolutely. Authorize 250,000 for any individual thing, and also let him know to let us know every at the nearest meeting that this has happened. But in terms of keeping track of it and then having some magic switch that gets flipped after you hit 40 of them or however many it takes to take to hit 10 million, I don't see a benefit to that.
So
It's a responsibility to track it.
I'm absolutely fine starting out that way, and if it works, keep going. If it doesn't, we change it.
Right.
And you guys can define what's reported. Like if you don't like the way it's being reported, you can say, I want to see this, this, and this.
Right.
Right. I mean, you can you know,
The thing I worry about is things that happen that we don't know we're not seeing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Here's my concern. It's not that. It's when he doesn't know it's happening. That's where I get concerned. And there will be times that stuff's going on and he's not gonna know.
but if people are making changes to that have a negative impact on baseline costs, that he doesn't know about, how do the next thing get paid?
Yeah.
It eventually catches up there.
Right.
But usually when it's that far down the road, you don't have a lot of choice.
That's got his hand raised, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say this touches on the third bullet. It's the first one on the next page. A change will impact the yearly projected cash flow by more than 10%. Maybe that one can be tweaked to cover what you're talking about, Mike, in terms of, the cumulative changes will impact the yearly projected cash flow by more than 5%, would put us back down in that 10 million range. Then at that point, it's like, we really need to have a conversation as a group around these authorizations or what the trajectory is.
Yeah, so let me clarify that a little bit, Seth, in that you've got 5 changes that are going through, and 10% of them hit design and the other 90% hit a future year in construction. You want to make sure that this bullet, you're tracking both of those, all of the years, each year independently, so we know early on that we're going to blow year 2027,
right,
which is heavy construction by these changes.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. The one that I was initially concerned about was changes, the third one. Changes anticipated to have an impact of more than 14 days on the critical path of the established baseline schedule or opening date of October 2029. My gut feel for a while, we ought to say if there's anything, any date change to the critical path, this group needs to know about it.
But it's different from saying has to know about it, from saying that it's not within the director's authorization. Yeah. So I would expect that we would be notified of any change, but I don't think that that Mike needs to to stop the project in its tracks and hold a review with us for any change. Do you?
Yes, I do. If that opening date is going to change by a week on a single change, then I think it's very appropriate that we call an emergency meeting if it's that critical, and we talk through it as a group, because this change will impact lots of things outside of our world, more so than the dollars. And once he makes the decision and a contract is changed, you have very little recourse.
How often do you think this?
I think in this first year, there's going to be a lot of pressure on this job.
Pretty critical stuff path can change a lot.
I think 1A, we're going to flop around a lot.
There we are.
You stare at that Gantt chart the end of your meeting.
It'd be terrible.
Uh,
For your third point, though, do you want, I agree with the first point. I agree with the first point. The second point, I know you say, the number I think can be switched or massaged to maybe, that is 250. I know it's a low number, but it's still, again, this is going to be read by, or we want to make sure we have a clear understanding so we can speak eloquently to the community. And I don't know if putting a dollar amount and not saying like 0.04%, like if we could maybe massage that number just a little bit so it is reflecting what we want it to actually
go up or down.
I personally think a change is anticipated having on more than 1% of the project. I think if you can take the dollar amount out and put the percentage for the
percent is a much bigger number than 200.
I know that.
All right, I'm just making sure.
I'm aware that I'm giving you more. I am trying today. I'm giving you more authority as opposed to dollar amount. I just think
you think it markets better, basically.
Personally, yes, because as a common person reading it, initially you hit it and you're like, wow, that's a lot of freaking money that this guy's I'm just wondering if there's a way to massage it. And then my final point is the time is the most critical. The time of the project is the most critical because 14 days is a whole new fishing window. I mean, if you think about it. So I think, again, I want to be really clear. I'm mostly concerned with the days of critical path because yes, it's a pain to notice and we might have to stop, but at the same point, if it's looking like it's going to extend past, we might be getting into problems that we're not foreseeing.
Let me clarify that point there.
Okay.
During the life of the project, your monthly critical path is going to bounce all over once we get started, and it's going to go positive hardly ever, but negative 3 days. And then the next month it'll be 7 days. And the next month it'll be 4 days and then 16 days. It's going to bounce around. What I meant here is officially changing the end date of the project. I think that decision has to be made by the authority. And it's kind of, I personally believe it's unfair to put that on Mike's back.
Are some of these too, are we getting ahead of ourselves? And like some of these are scenarios we encounter at a future state of the project?
Really,
Not really.
The 14 days of the opening of 2029 in 1A?
Yeah, hopefully.
You make in 1A, 1B that you'll be doing a schedule the whole time.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right, so it'll be, we'll be developing and refining that baseline schedule in 1A, and at the end of 1A, we'll have a better defined baseline schedule that will follow in 1B and 2, but I think there still will be decisions that, we need to discuss and talk about. And again, I'm not worried about it because I know every 2 weeks you're going to hear about the project and you're going to hear about what's going on. So, that to me, the 14 days is you're going to hear about it anyway. So 14 days is what our schedule is. So,
I mean, I think it also could be comfort level for like 1A if it's 14 days, 1B if it's 5 days, and we could also maybe write it that way where we're only going to cover 1A right now.
if we find out it's not working.
Okay.
I really think 3 needs to kind of go away. Any formal change to the schedule has to come back here.
Great,
Yes.
so where we are
Okay,
is-
good. Okay, I was like, wait, hang on. This is a yeah.
Great,
Really
so let's just summarize. So we're gonna take 250,000 out and replace it by a percentage. I'm a little uncomfortable about it going up to 1%.
That's fine.
0.5.
It's like 0.5. Yeah.
This is a point,
0.04.
Yeah, right now you're at 0.04. No, 0.04%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
If you're taking it to 0.5%, that's a big number.
0.05,
0.05.
just to get.
0.05, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
You're up.
I said 0.5
300,000.
and 1.05, sorry.
The only concern I have with the taking 14 out and saying any schedule change is
Report back.
No.
Correct.
Clarify, Mike. This is, you're approving the contractor to officially change the end date of the project.
okay. If there's
It's
any-
gonna change every friggin' week.
Okay, I misunderstood what you said. If there's
forecast
any
is gonna
change to
change
the
every week.
October 29th date.
At the end, like the official end
I
date.
misunderstood what you said. I thought you said any
Opening
change.
Yeah, opening day cannot change.
So
I
we leave,
expect we're not gonna change that official date, but maybe once a year, or if there's a major bust, like we don't get funding,
yeah. I mean,
it's gonna change.
Okay, so you want to leave 3, but modify it to just say any change to the opening date of October 29th, just so it's documented?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, October 1st, 2029.
Okay. Modify that.
I mean, last are, I think, pretty good, right?
On item 1, if you wanted to clean up the language, so you can do that, you'd strike the word
Gave up
contractor,
30 days.
It's got another.
as you mentioned.
Explain, please.
It's as bullet point number 1 is written, any change to any contract, we would need to authorize. But if we struck the word contract, it's just agreements, the MOUs, the IGAs.
This does also include contracts.
Yeah, I think that we want to keep that. I was more saying it
Contract
about,
in terms of contractor contracts, the people actually doing the work.
If you want to rev up the contract, it has to come back here.
Yeah. But with this is authorizing.
Why do you want to take that word out? I'm not following.
What Marla mentioned earlier regarding it being in conflict with bullet point 2.
Yeah, I was just saying, doesn't 2 imply a cost is a change? So doesn't bullet 1, the way it's written right now, basically send any change to Mike needing to see
So
direction?
just what we'll award is a total, like let me use 1A as an example. We will negotiate and come up with a not to exceed amount for the contractor for 1A.
Yeah.
We may make changes in there that don't register as a total change to that contract price. So it would be when that contract price changes that we would need to change the contract, but individual changes of pluses or minuses, we may move money from A to B, would be something different.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And and yeah.
And then the last one, if we're gonna do something that impacts the long-term maintenance of the bridge,
Yeah.
then it needs to be discussed here.
Mhm.
You could cheapen up construction, but make you cost maintenance a lot more.
Could we put an IE or an example after that so that's clear? Like,
Yeah, like if you take out all the drains, so someone has to go out with a bucket to
yeah, could we just put in examples
Yeah.
like road
No,
type or,
the roadway depth.
I mean, these are things,
Yeah.
I think this gets us thinking and makes sure that we're like all saying the same.
We can put some examples on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, material type.
Yep.
Yeah.
Color.
I just thought it was important that all of you understand what we're doing here.
No, good idea.
It's got long-term ramifications to the project. Okay,
So are we gonna see this with revisions, or are we still considering it now with the
We can do it
noted
as
changes?
noted changes, or if you want to see the revised version, we can.
we're
Give you
not
the
doing
right-
anything that's gonna change anything. Why don't you mark it up and bring it back the next meeting?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. It's not time critical for you, I don't believe it.
No, we don't need this today anyway. It was just,
Okay.
we need to do it, but. it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be this week.
Well, I think we've made progress today on it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, next one, HRWSBA mission, vision and guidelines principles.
So does the communication committee want to cover this one? This is your.
Sure. I mean, hopefully this is already in everybody's radar. This is obviously something that we as the authority, I think, were visited at an October meeting, and it was the result of the work that was undertaken with all of us in launching the authority and figuring out our overall charter roles. So communications team, we reviewed this with the mindset that the mission should really be a concise explanation of our reason for existence and what is our purpose, intention, overall objective. And then we refined the vision so that it is reflecting what the authority wants to accomplish. Kind of that mission's the general statement, and this is how we're going to achieve that vision. And then values, we kind of tried to keep these as themes that were intended to capture the approach to the work across all areas. And then we included just the about the bridge authority language so that we had that easy boilerplate language to go at the bottom of any future release or informational handout. Just make sure that bringing this back to everyone for review so that everyone was comfortable with what each of these areas captures. So any
discussions?
We did get
I
some
like it.
comments.
Seth's email.
So yes,
Yeah.
we did get some comments from Seth. So I don't know if we want to give him a chance to.
Yeah,
talk about
thanks.
his comments.
Thank you. Yeah, I sent out some comments by email earlier today. I apologize. I didn't get to read these until just today, but overall, I like them. But I submitted some alternatives that really the main difference between the what's presented in the packet and the alternatives was that I wanted to add some language in the mission and vision that really, Marla, kind of talks to what you were just saying were the folks that we're missing in our current story right now. And that is the sort of daily use users of the bridge. I felt like they weren't really represented as as obviously as I thought that I would like to see them represented. And so what I put in my email, and I'm happy to read it out for everybody if they don't have access to it in front of them. Would you guys like me to do that?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, sure. So what I have in my email is, from my understanding of the role of the mission and vision. Oh, sorry.
Steph, you have the ability to share your screen.
I'd kind of like to see this up on the screen and hear him read it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead, Seth.
Go ahead.
Sure. My understanding of the role of the mission and vision is much to what Marla said. The mission is sort of the current work. What are we doing right now, and why do we exist? I see this as kind of critical to that R2A2 exercise that some of the commissions and so forth have been engaging in. That is, what do we want to be responsible for? What needs to come back to us? If it touches the mission, then we probably as a group need to consider it. So I think that getting the mission right is important for that reason. And then the vision is sort of what is driving us all to be here. So what I edited is I changed the mission statement, again, fairly slightly, to be: the authority manages the construction and long-term operation of the replacement Hood River White Salmon Bridge. We ensure that the bridge meets the needs of the entire community, adhering to both construction and daily use budgets and fostering regional jobs and commerce for decades to come. So the changes there are to change the sort of the voice a little bit of it to be, we are the authority, and to add in sections there, or just verbiage talking about not only construction budgets but also the daily users, the folks who are going to be using the bridge. Those are the changes on that one. What I have for vision is: the authority aims to design and build a safe, affordable, and modern crossing for people and commerce. We will ensure it provides maximum benefit to all community members by accommodating car and pedestrian traffic and bolstering the local economy through affordable crossing rates. Our design will complement the area's natural beauty and local ecosystems, working in harmony with local cultures. So again, some fairly small tweaks, but bringing in that we really want this to be something that's for the daily user and not only for sort of the economic driver user, which would be, to me, the commerce side of things.
So I guess, in how this all started and how we were thinking about it, we are a governing agency that was created. What is the purpose of it? And this the mission statement should be something that lives for the length of the role of this agency. And so that's where I think my inclination still is there is a benefit, not in, I agree with everything you're bringing forward, but what I think I would push back on is that there is a benefit to this being a more general, broad capture so that it can continue to grow with the authority as the role changes. And so I do think that mission calling out the maintenance, like we are looking into a future when this bridge exists, and the day-to-day work we're focusing on right now shifts for those new authority members. This mission statement should continue to capture that. The other thing I would caution against at this stage, I think getting into too much detail, if we're thinking about what is the role of this, and it's to communicate to the general public or to partnering agencies or entities what our role is, we're starting to veer outside of our purpose when we sit there in a vision and call out that we will be taking on bolstering the local economy. I'm trying to read back through. Hold on, maybe I read something incorrectly, and then I'll take back what I just said. But yeah, no, it's in the mission. I would take issue with saying that our mission is to foster regional jobs and commerce for decades to come. We're not a port. We're not an agency where that's our charter. Our charter is very singularly, and I think to reassure to our public who's paid tolls that have been used in other ways, we are singularly about this bridge, the construction of it, and then the long-term maintenance, and any money going to it is for that focus. I agree with you about calling out the daily user, but I worry that language could get interpreted in a very different way and muddy what our actual function is.
Yeah, all that makes sense. I agree with the fostering the regional jobs. I would be okay with striking that. I have found that the talking about the daily user has not always happened as much as I would like it to in the conversations of the authority. And I really do think that when it comes down to it, that is by far the bulk of the users of the bridge. I mean, by an order of magnitude or more, are the people that are using it not for exactly, commerce activities. And I think that making sure that it is that we're putting a line in the sand that those are the people that we're working for is a worthwhile thing to consider doing. So.
Good, to get that, to hear that, and to also hit what you're saying, could you say the authority is responsible for the construction, long-term operation and maintenance of the new HRWSB, ensuring it serves the community, comma, and daily user, comma, for decades to come? Because then you're also saying the community does hold tourism, it holds the idea of jobs, like, 'cause that's what the community needs, but also you're saying, and the daily users, so you're identifying, pulling that specific, that is our mission, that person is our mission.
It hits all of them.
I would instead, I like the way that Seth broke the community down into who all the elements are.
Okay.
So in some way, I would try to incorporate, who is the bridge designed for?
The daily.
It's designed for.
I usually do that in a
Yeah.
mission.
I think I mean, maybe we need to start first with like collectively as a group, what do we see a mission statement doing? What is the purpose of it for our entity? And then thereby how we interpret a mission will inform what your vision is. But I think I'm hearing maybe a desire or different perspectives on what the mission really should be. How
we're serving. If we just intended a bridge for bicyclists, then it would be a lot narrower, right?
Yeah. So
Exactly.
multimodal, I mean, I do think the key part of this bridge is that we are making sure that it has all these different ways of crossing through various transportation.
Right.
I think community capture, or again, back to, and this is up for discussion. I'm coming to it from a place of staying broad because community can change and flex over time. And yes, it's daily users. Yes, it's tourism. Yes, it's our local businesses and commerce that's passing through. If we want to call out a specific user.
I think the mission ought to be kind of a litmus test for us. Whatever we're trying to do, can we say it's covered in the mission statement? If we can't, then we either need to change the mission statement or stop doing it. Now, the one thing that I can see in the mission statement is that there's a big piece that's missing in the mission statement, and that's the responsibility of design. We're going to go construct a bridge, but the real meat and potatoes for us is what do we want it to be? That's design.
Right.
That design before construction. Design.
Yeah, so just insert for the design, construction, and
sense. But I would like some place to describe who we're designing and constructing it for. It doesn't have to be explicit. It can be something general enough that it can evolve over time. I'm sure that in 1924 they would have made a list that doesn't look quite like our list does today. But I'd like to make it clear that we're not just doing it for bicyclists, as an example. It has to explain that it's designed to, that the reason why we're putting a bridge here is because we have local needs and regional needs, and we're trying to meet the local and regional needs thoroughly.
So maybe it's about qualifying who we see the community is, that there's a local community as well as.
All of those things are encompassed in serves the community. As soon as we start listing out explicitly each components of that community, somebody gets left out. So if we go down that route, we're going to make a gigantic list of people, and it will never be exhaustive. And it doesn't belong in a mission.
But the word community to me doesn't encompass the interstate commerce aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, community refers to, Hood River, White Salmon, Bingen as groups of people, and the bridge serves more than that.
it serves the local and regional community.
Right.
No,
I mean,
you
you can add
still have
those two things.
people coming from out of
Out of the area.
And so I think, again, and that's why I'm saying community or daily user, that it cut both, like that the community wants to look at the bridge and see the bridge but I'm not gonna go over the bridge, right? I mean, you talked about it, you said a specific person. That person,
Right.
if you just put daily user, then wouldn't be encompassed. But if you had whoever wants to use the bridge and whoever wants to be a part of the community, that's the reason I was saying like the community and daily user, because we also aren't defining how it's being used in this. So we're not saying the daily biker user, the daily, fruit delivery user. We're saying whatever daily user. So that's why you're having this larger mission to smaller entity. And I do think it would be mission creep if we said, for instance, veterans. We're going to use it for veterans, and then a non-veteran goes over, right? So we can't start being real specific on the groups of people we're saying, because you won't hit everybody. Someone will get missed off, and then what about the anti-community person who's like, I'm not part of this community? Well, you're a daily user. So we really have that both end.
So it sounds like refining community to capture some of these different bridge users, both how we see locally community, but also all the commerce and the interstate component. And I think I heard it, and if I did, or if I'm making this up, then I'm throwing it out there for consideration. But do we want then that mission to also account for the modes of like the charge, not just about the design, adding that, but that this bridge will have multiple ways?
No, I don't think you have
like
to.
multimodal
No.
transportation? No? Okay.
Just say, maybe you say it's a modern bridge.
Hey, the bridge we have was modern in 1924.
Yeah.
I think that belongs, in my opinion, in the vision statement. I mean, like, my vision is that it's multimodal. My vision is that however you want to get across it, when I think about why I'm doing this, that's one of the main important things for me. But as a mission statement, I agree that it probably doesn't belong in there. And I really appreciate you guys considering these changes, because I do think, to the points of, who is the community in 1924, it was $20 to cross the bridge in 1924. The community they were thinking of was, fruit producers and logging companies. We have a different community that we really need to think about. And I want to make sure that we have a mandate, agreed upon mandate to do that.
Yeah, I think we can thesaurus the community into something else. I think we just have to agree to what it is. Is it just humanity? Yeah, it's humanity. I mean, that's all encompassing to this project, I think. But yeah, whatever word that is.
What about non-humans? My dog.
Terrestrial beings.
So playing the role that I don't usually play, trying to move things along.
I've never seen that.
Does your committee have enough to chew on this one more time and bring it back?
I think expanding the mission, I guess on vision, do we think that the vision, the way it's presented in its draft form, needs further refinement? And again, I guess what I'm calling attention to is where we land. We were thinking about many of the same things Seth raised. Absolutely affordability. I think we call out affordable. Again, I would worry right now about getting too particular and especially promising things like, bolstering local economy through affordable crossing rates. That could get interpreted at this stage of the project as, are we about to say no tolls indefinitely for certain users? Like, I think that opens a can of worms we're not actually prepared or ready to be taking on or answering to. But we are calling out that, and I think you're right, a lot of us are here because we want it to stay affordable. Is there a feeling that we need to get more explicit on that part rather than just the way that we're acknowledging it through the word?
I don't think so.
Any commission is going to be able to change that.
Yeah.
And as the world changes and their desires change, whatever we say today, they're going to do what they do.
So let me make a suggestion. We add the word design to the mission.
Yeah.
But then everything else, leave it like it is and make a commitment in 6 months. We come back, take a look at it, see if we need to adjust it. But let it go as it is.
Well, I mean, look, we're all in this together. So I think there was a lot of input about wanting us to revisit how we're talking about community. We can do that. I think adding design, that seems pretty straightforward. I didn't hear a disagreement on that. I was trying to be clear, are we continuing to refine mission, or is there a desire for more reworking of vision or other things that are here? Are we considering some of those maybe we're not touching and we're just getting mission to be more dialed in?
My understanding of what we've agreed to generally, correct me if I'm wrong, is adding design and thesaurusing the community.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And we hadn't talked about any other changes to anything else.
What
The
we did
vision,
talk-
I think the vision looks fine. I mean, what I suggested in my email is essentially what is written here, but with some small edits. So I think if you wanted to leave the vision exactly how it is, I would still vote to approve that for sure.
Since you're still editing, I think we should put personally moving harmony with local cultural practices higher up in the vision as opposed to being its last place.
Okay.
I think that's where everyone expects it to be. It's like, oh, and also we'll do this because you're supposed to do this. But I think if you put that first, and I had also, yes, safety is great, but I also would then put affordable first, because that's showing that we are, just your point. I'm just like a suggestion for that, because safety is the first word for values, and I think so you can hit it twice. Yes, safety is obviously important, but if we want to, shift a perception here a little, just a little bit.
Okay.
So you'll make the change, bring it back next time and sign her off.
Happy holidays. December 11th.
Okay.
Thank you. If you have it like engraved in stone when you bring it.
Yeah, I don't think
I gotta print you guys all a holiday card with
it on.
Yeah, people are gonna be less likely to want to change.
We can mail all of them to NIMS.
Or just put it with the.
Moving on, transportation package considerations, Mike.
So there's a letter that we would like to submit to the Joint Transportation Committee. I just wanted to put this in front of everyone so that we could get your approval to go out and get signatures for this. There was also a question that I had on getting your all signatures. And what the best way is to do that. No, nobody sent me back their signatures on this, and nobody has. So
no, I thought we gave you our signature.
We did not, and that's what I wanted to ask you. Was whenever when there was a bridge working group, I had people's signatures, and then I would email you and ask you if I could put your name on a document. We have not done that as part of the authority. And the question would be, one, are you okay with that? And do you want to go back to that and let me have your signatures? And, ask when I could put them on so that we don't have to send documents around, or would you prefer to send it through like DocuSign and everybody's signing?
This isn't a DocuSign sort of thing, because we're not.
We want to
taking
look,
legal
I think it
action
looks
here.
nicer to have them.
Well, certainly looks more official if you've got it signed.
Let me DocuSign.
As someone that worked for DocuSign for 10 years, I disagree.
You can upload your own signature. I do it.
Well, no, it's just a much more,
DocuSign.
it's a much more official way of going about things. You have a full audit trail. It is a legally binding signature. There's only a certain amount of times when it's not legally executable. And in everything that we will be doing, we would then have a full audit trail. There's reminders on it, so we're not missing emails. It's to have an account that we all can subscribe to. It would be very cost effective. So I mean, that's my 2 cents, but we can do it.
Anybody have a strong opinion the other way?
DocuSign it. I mean,
I'm worried about us creating for mechanical things like thanking someone for sending us free donuts. I don't want us to have to go.
Oh no, I think that should still be a personal.
Yeah, like a Christmas card that we all put our signature on. Sure, have my PDF, but for something that we're agreeing to.
I want a card with Santa Claus stuck in a traffic jam next to a big truck on the bridge.
Oh my gosh, we should Photoshop that.
So good.
For sure. Like they could be squeezing Rudolph.
Any further discussion on using this?
Packages on the bridge.
Oh my God.
Big are uncle.
So you all will send me your PDF signature.
I'm sorry I said it.
What?
So you all will send me your PDF signature.
Everybody, even alternates?
I would prefer to have.
Yeah, because if
I'm
you,
sure.
Because then I
if
could.
an alternate is at the vote instead of next, then they would sign whatever we authorize.
Yes, it'd be easier.
Do I have to send it again since you already have it?
No, I could take the one you have, I think, and recreate it into, I just have to break it up. I think I can create one. If I can't, I'll let you know. And then for things like this, though, we will DocuSign them out if it's more of an official document requesting something from somebody and you can DocuSign.
But teach people how to do the upload, because it really pisses me off when DocuSigns are all the stupid fake signature.
Font, yeah.
I don't see mine, yeah,
Doesn't matter how ugly it is.
it does.
All right, we'll work on the training.
Just not the fake.
Okay, and DocuSign's fine. There's other softwares, but DocuSign's probably the most known and user efficient to do, so.
And there is no conflict of interest here, right, Doug?
Oh, none. No, not anymore. I took most of that out a long time ago.
Okay.
All right, so we're good with that letter. I think that's all I need.
And then informational items.
Real quick, I'll be doing a project update to the Gorge Commission on the 12th. That got bumped, just more of an update. The RFP schedule, the next activity is one-on-one meetings with the proposers, which will happen the week of December 4th. The housing presentations will get an email out over the next 2 weeks to folks asking them if they want to come in January to present. The section 6F that was included just for information for you related to 6F properties and how we may impact those. That was something that was sent to the port to provide them some additional information related to 6F. And for us, it's just a matter of what we may or may not need to mitigate. There's not a whole lot in there unless you have questions on those.
For number 3, you're gonna add in Port Hood River closure. Correct.
I'll expand that to the 2 we talked about today, Wasco County and.
So next, back you up a little bit. Next week with the RFP, you've got some.
We've got
folks
2
coming in.
We got 2 one-on-ones right now set up with industry.
Does our team need to be there?
No.
Yeah. You're just like,
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's different places across the country do this differently. Florida, it was always required that technical people were at the.
Yeah.
Washington does not do that. They actually had you all like in closets and don't tell anybody who's involved.
What's Oregon?
It's really strange. Oregon is kind of in between. If you want to attend and listen, what I would say is you can attend and listen. I would say don't interact on the meeting. But if you want to attend and listen, you could attend and listen.
Is it virtual?
We'll have a virtual option.
I may do the virtual, so if you send us.
Okay. We can do that.
You can always say no.
I'll be there. Camera off.
Okay, next one.
Upcoming actions is just a list of things we're continuing to work on. And then presentations we talked about, One Gorge will be coming in December. As soon as we can get to the grant agreement, we do have the agreement drafted up. We will be this week sending that to FHWA as a courtesy review, even though we're not really allowed to send it to them for a formal review. I'm going to see if they'll at least do a courtesy review of what we've completed. So that hopefully when they do the training, we'll be one step ahead and they'll have already seen ours. So after that, we're pretty much done until they do the training. And then the housing approach we talked about, that'll be looking at January.
Okay. Any other items from anybody?
One thing I forgot earlier when we were talking about finances, regarding the mega grant. That program is awarding one large regional award and 2 small awards to regions. The category of a large award is anything over 500 million for a project. There's more competition for the larger award versus the 2 smaller ones. So just want to let you guys all be aware of that 500 million is the cutoff for falling in which category.
For mega, you said?
Mega.
Yeah. There may be something going into next year. So if we don't get anything this year that we want to consider when we apply next year.
Yeah. I think we want to.
Now the 500 million or 500 million up is not the grant. But
No, it's the total project cost,
I'm sorry,
total project. cost.
total project cost. Okay. So we would fall into the,
If it was 520, then we would be large. If it's under 500, 499 less, then it's small.
what did we submit that one at?
520. Well, it's 511.
That's part of the main and PDG.
It's 511.
It's actually 511, considering what was spent and, yeah.
And when you say the region, define the region.
I can't remember.
Oregon.
State,
I
it's,
think
it's,
by
it's by
state.
state. This is Carrie. It's,
state.
it's by state.
I thought it was
And
like.
It's
Hood
one
River,
large
White
project.
Salmon.
By state.
No, it's
Yeah.
each state will have one large project, two small projects. And once they've exceeded that they don't say you'll never get money, but that is their target. It is important too. I just want to make the distinction under the Bridge Investment Program, which is the grant that we're submitting shortly. The cutoff is 100 million. So there's no question there that we're a large bridge in that program. What,
Mega.
yeah, under mega and the MPDG applications, the cutoff is 500.
Yeah, and Infra and Royal do not have rural, did I say rural, sorry. Does not have that same thing, right? It's
That's
only
true.
mega.
No, that's true. It's mega that has that cutoff. That's correct.
When do you expect they'll announce the mega?
Well, I'll tell you what, there's rumors floating around that it's imminent. I don't know. One of the things that's interesting is they have been saying first of the year, and there is a 30-day congressional embargo. And so what that means is that the Secretary of Transportation's recommended list of projects and awards goes to the Congress, and Congress has time to hash it out and fight over it for 30 days. And that's supposed to be a top secret process. The fact is it really isn't usually. And it usually leaks out a little bit. So if we're on that list, I would think we'll get a little bit of advance notice. They like to keep it secret because there are projects that might be on that list that Congress decides shouldn't be on the list. So they don't want any bad things in that regard. But so, Congress is going to know 30 days before we know. And chances are we would hear. So if they're planning to do that, say the first couple of weeks of January, I would say in the next 2 weeks.
So RG2 from Summit felt that mega grant has already been decided. They've already made their decision.
The Secretary of Transportation, I would guess perhaps if they're trying to stay on that schedule. That doesn't mean Congress has endorsed that decision, but that's quite possible.
It's too late to send them a present, though, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Kind of. Okay.
This is the Schrodinger's cat sort of thing. It's been decided, but we don't know until.
So we expect to hear back on the mega grant. So we haven't had any rumblings that we didn't or did get it. Is
I
that?
had some questions, which is a good sign.
Yes, which
Once
is
the
good. We did.
application was submitted.
We answered
like clarifying
questions.
questions.
And that
We
is
haven't
actually
heard
that's actually a good sign because they wouldn't be asking questions if they weren't actually looking deep into the application. And the nature of the questions indicated they've read the application, which is good.
The price thing, I think, is where, depending on how this all shakes out, we might want to really dive in and just think about, are we canceling ourselves out by competing in
Mega category.
house?
Category,
Yeah.
man.
Yep. So if
Anything else?
Yeah, briefly, the IGA, which is the next thing in upcoming action items. So Jake and I met with Christy and Heather late last week, and I'm going to, but we basically have agreement on what we think is the overall picture. And I'm going to document that and send that back to them to bring to their board, and then I'll bring it to this board for further discussion. So there's some progress there.
So you're at least talking, nobody walked out of the meeting.
Yeah, no, we were all pretty much in agreement. Everyone nodded and said, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It was really pretty straightforward. Christy shared with me some concerns about what other people on the board might think, and I'm going to help her with some explanations as to how I got there and see how that works.
Good. Anybody else in the room here? Doug, you have anything?
Nope.
Seth? Who else are we missing from the?
He might have had to.
He's got
I
a-
got nothing to add.
Jake? Yep, Jake?
What's the pointer? I don't know.
I think he said no.
I got nothing to add.
There you go.
It's good.
Nothing. Okay, with that, I adjourn the meeting and hope
Wow.
everybody had a good turkey day and
Look at that.
pretty good, huh?
Great.
Thanks, everyone.